I have with us in the studio the Executive Director, African Network for Environment and Economic Justice, is a frontline civil society analyst, global experts on anti-corruption activities. Let me thank very especially Reverend David Ogolumi. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Mr.
Every election cycle provides the opportunity for the people to make the change. But often in time, within the context of Nigeria, it looks like even when that change is made, it's supposed to be the collective expression of the will of the people. But when governance starts under the present leadership, it looks like the people are shortchanged. What is responsible for this?
Thank you again for the opportunity to participate in this conversation. Like you said, it's not just Nigeria, it's all over the world. You can see that the quality of democracy is reducing as a result of one number of factors, which is not peculiar to Nigeria alone. And so, in dealing with this challenge, one of the reasons why you see this happen is that political parties play a major role to strengthen people's engagement with the political process. But you can see that political parties in Nigeria are gradually losing their relevance because obviously it doesn't play that role any longer. It's pretty difficult for you to differentiate the political parties. For example, PDP, APC, Labour. If you look at the actors that are involved in each of these political parties, you cannot easily associate them with any ideology, any difference in terms of what policies they are implementing. So apparently it's difficult. So the political party is becoming a vehicle for individuals to achieve their goal, and then the political parties are judged by political elites, so the people don't normally be able to ensure that there's good governance in the political party. And when there is no good governance in terms of who becomes the chairman of the political party, who represents the political party, it's difficult for that vehicle to be able to deliver any quality good leadership. And that's one major reason why you have seen the failure of election or delivering the result. Another one is the quality of rule of law. When you see the quality of rule of law, it has really gone down. The models of appointing judges in courts and all that has now been politically influenced, and that has really damaged the process entirely in the country. And then another factor is the high level of corruption across the country. If you don't control corruption, the damage it does to the quality of governance is obvious, and that's exactly what you are seeing in the country. And then awareness and the voice of the people. This is something that you often see that when the people are not conscious, when people are not aware, when the people are not well mobilized as a result of high level of poverty, and the political elite in the country have used patron system to patronize system, and then the poverty is increasing daily.
Okay.
And that has also affected the country, and that has damaged the psyche of the people to be active in the political process. So if you look at these factors that I've identified, there are key things that have actually damaged the political process, and that has actually affected the quality of election processes in Nigeria in producing the results.
How do you think some of these factors that you have highlighted, and then of course in addition to other ancillary factors, throwing up the major focus of discussion in Edo 2024 governorship election debate?
Well, Edo is not an exception. We have all the political parties here who have now presented their candidates. How they emerge is a different conversation entirely. But like I try to tell my friends is that this is not the best time now to be arguing who is who or not. The political party have presented their candidate. We should be able to assess the candidate based on what the political party has presented. And the people also cannot continue to argue at this point in time. The time for that argument has passed. And we are now in a journey towards September, where whoever eventually win the governorship election will emerge. But what is more important is for the people to understand what are the issues. Why should I go to the polling booth to cast my vote? Why should I invest my time? I wake up in the morning, take my voter's card, and I go to the polling unit and cast my vote. There are very good reasons for that to happen. Every time you complain about no good road, every time you complain about no good school, every time you complain about problems, this is the opportunity to be able to solve that problem. You probably will ask yourself that, will my vote make a change? Yes, it will make a change. Don't be cynical. Be very optimistic how you can contribute, because the cynicism is part of the whole strategy the political elite have used to undermine our potential to get organized and get the collective actions to make a change. So, are there opportunity for us to make a change in the election that is coming? There is a huge opportunity for the Edo people to make a change, even though the political party and the political elite do not see the possibility of the people getting organized to make a change. Because if you look at the negotiation and the debate and the conversation that is going on, hardly the people think that the people can decide. And that's one of the reasons why some of us in the civil society is saying that let the people's vote decide who becomes the governor in September. And if the people's vote will decide, it's you and I. We have to play our role. The media has to play their role. The civil society have to play their role. The religious leaders have to play their role. Even though they compromise the leadership of these sectors I have mentioned, the whole real challenge is that for us to continue to raise awareness that it is in our own long-term interest to begin to organize our people. First, to mobilize our people to get their voters card ready. If the politicians comes to you to give you money for you to vote, ignore them, collect the money, but vote your conscience. Because if you don't vote your conscience and you allow the money to influence the decision you take, the consequence, you will bear it at the end of September. So what do we do at this point in time? What should be the issues that should guide our decision and our conscience when we are trying to vote? One is to look into the issues in Edo State today. There are obvious big problems in Edo State. One of the key problems is that there's lack of transparency in the entire process. Candidates are not able to put on the table what the issue is. And so my fear is that whoever that wins after September is going to complain about some problem. One of those key problems is the external debt of Edo State. Edo people need to know what amount of resources that is available for development. So when people are promising, when the governorship candidates are promising that they will build road, they will build school, they will do this, where will they get the money from?
Is the issue of lack of transparency about the issues that should guide the decision of the electorate to decide who to vote for. But unfortunately, as you know, the political parties and the candidates control the airwave.
Okay.
And so their issues dominate rather than the issues of the people.
Okay.
So that's our responsibility as civil society to ensure that we are also able to put the issues on the table and then to influence our people's decision on who to vote for. So on that, and the reason is also in the interest of who eventually becomes the governor after September election. For example, you've experienced it in this country when people eventually win as governor, they begin to complain and there's no money. The former governor took a lot of loan and so I'm not able to do what I am supposed to do. That's, for me, is unacceptable. If you want to contest as a governor of Edo State, by now you should be able to know the problem of Edo State. And you and I know very clearly that the current monthly income allocation coming to Edo State is not enough to run Edo State. Obviously, Edo State government takes some loans, grants, or whatever, anything.
That's the reality.
That's the reality. And so, because of these loans that Edo State government have been taking, unfortunately, they don't also pay in accordance. And so there's a difference. So there is an external debt that Edo State government probably would have incurred after September 21. And so if you want to vote in any governor, a governor who have not, a supposed governor or a candidate who have not been able to run a successful company, he has not managed any company, not even manage his family. Let's start from that basic level.
Okay.
And then you want him now to come and manage a debt of about 10 billion naira, which look, the interest rate and the CBN rate now is increasing every day, which means it's also affecting Edo State external debt, because as the rate is increasing, it means that the loan we have taken is going to be increasing. Okay. So we should be able to hear from those governors, candidates, to say that this is how I'm going to deal with the problem. And this is how I'm going to raise money to embark on constructing road, because people expect the governor to deliver what they call the democracy dividend. But you can only deliver when there is enough money. But when the budget deficit, you don't tell us how you are going to finance it. So these are questions that should be coming out from the media, from civil society, from the people, from labor, from trade union, so that when we put these questions before the candidates, the way they respond to this question will guide our decision on who to vote for. So the decision to vote for the candidate should not be based on sentiment, because PDP said it, or APC or Labour Party said it. Because like I said earlier on, in the foreground, in the context of this analysis, is that there is no difference between PDP and APC. There is no difference between Labour and PDP. The characters that are involved in these political parties, they are all the same. They move from one party at their own convenience, just to achieve their aspiration. And we have also seen in the country that when people eventually win the election, they don't actually associate themselves with the political party. It becomes the governor. It becomes that, to the extent that even the president starts it when he puts his cap. That symbol in his cap, that's actually the political party. If you don't belong to that cap and symbol, you don't get anything. And this has also cascaded to state and local government. Once the man wins the governorship,
it's a case of the winner takes it all.
Takes it all. If you don't belong to in Edo State now, the Obaseki party. When I say Obaseki party, it doesn't necessarily have to be a political party. If you are not, so it's really bad in Nigerian democracy. The quality of governance has made it so that patron-client system, if you don't belong to the system, you cannot associate. And in a preliminary research we have seen is a kind of damaging corruption that I mentioned earlier on that is affecting the democracy quality. When you see that you cannot assess opportunity if you don't belong to the governor's party, if you don't belong to the governor, if the governor does not want to do any business with you, you can't do business in the state.
Irrespective of the qualities that you have.
Exactly.
That you have.
And in a country, in a system like that, it can't grow. It can't grow.
Let me just get you to respond to something that was said by the INEC National Chairman. It has to do with the outcome of the 2023 general elections, and then even the ongoing continuous voter registration in terms of the level of mobilization and participation of the youths in 2023, and even the ongoing voter registration. What can we extrapolate from that trend, that pattern?
Yes, during the obese time, there was some upsurge of youth momentum to express themselves. But beyond that expression, you found that it all exploded. Nothing really came out of it, because sometimes the youth, whether you call it the youth exuberance, once they are mobilized, for what purpose? It's not sustainable. And then the elites have taken advantage of that. Sometimes it can even be hijacked. And that's why we're a bit conscious and being calculative to know how we'll appreciate when the youth are mobilizing. Is the mobilization very good? It's very good. It raises awareness. And I want to appeal to Edo State youth people to be very cautious. And it is because if they know the damage they do to themselves, if they don't take this very deeply in terms of making sure that their vote counts, it affects their future, because it's their future that is endangered. In other climes, people are thinking about building wealth for generation yet unborn. But what our elite have done in Nigeria, our political elite have done in Nigeria, is stealing from the future for the present of their children. And what they don't understand is that when the elite steal for their children, they build for their children and leave the other 90% of the children, their 10% children can't survive, because the governor's children, the senator's children cannot survive without the children of the poor farmers. the villagers, because those ones will rise. And somehow God has made it possible that the poor men children that you think you have ignored, they have a way of rising. They have a way of filling into the space. So it's in the interest of the political elite to begin to look into policy that will address our problem in this country. So coming into a Edo State election, coming into in September, what should be guiding the people of Edo State, the youth, mobilizing to ensure that they use their voter card to count who becomes the governor? One is information, and that's our responsibility to raise awareness that there is a problem in Edo State. No doubt the monthly allocation that is coming to Edo State is not enough, and in the last 80 years the state has been going borrowing, and in borrowing they try to use it to finance development. Okay. And the debt incurred from it has put some burden on the state government, and to sustain the payment of the interest on those loans, it requires knowledge, it requires innovation. And that innovation will expect that from who becomes governor. And if that person does not have the capacity to deliver, he doesn't have the history, it will be difficult for him to deliver. So that we don't have a situation where after September 11, whoever that emerged as the governor become calling Bobaseki's name. It will not be Obaseki's problem as at that time. This is the time for us in Edo to decide who becomes the governor, and this is the best time for who wants to become the governor to be put on the table to say, look, you want to become a governor, this is the problem. Do you have capacity to solve this problem? Can you share with us how you intend to raise resources? Because, for example, let's look into the agriculture. Obviously, the total percentage of populations of Edo people that are involved in farming is shrinking. If you go to the villages across Edo State, you are seeing the rural overdraft, because people have moved from rural area to the urban to look for white collars job that is not in existence. And then because of this, people no longer involved in farming. And most of the land in Edo State have also been given to big farmers. And unfortunately, these big farmers, what they are involved in is not what the people consume. So all those conversations need to form part of what we expect from the next governor in Edo State. What will happen? Just take, for example, in Ovia, where substantial part of the land has been given to Okomu. You know, big multinational company. And then I fear in the future, in the next 20, 30, 40 years, where would the rural people, what land would they farm on? Where would they have land to farm on? These are the things that we should discuss in the coming up election. We want our governor to tell us the lands that are available for the peoples to farm on. When government sells land, when government makes land available to multinational multinational companies, what now happens to the local rural people, their land? And so those are the issues that the rural people in Igobazua, in Okumu, Egbeta, they should be asking. That should guide their decision on who to vote for and who's next governor to vote for. And then you want to talk about in Ekpoma, for example. It's not about whether this is our son or not. It's about the credibility of this person to deliver on what he can do. And for example, when we were going to school those days in Ekpoma, we hear about Ekpoma rice. What are the policies that will help address to ensure that those farmers that were involved in Ekpoma rice production, can they be empowered? What was those policies that disempowered them? These are the things we want to hear from. And so, in addressing some of these issues that is peculiar to different kind of region, that will guide the decision of those who are voting. And that will guide expectation from who will be the next governor of Edo State. And these are the issues we want to put on the table that will guide the electorate to take a decision on who to vote for. But ultimately, what we should be counting on, and then I appeal to the religious leaders, and I appeal to the youth, and I appeal to the organized labor group, is the issue of let our vote count. Don't allow these governors, don't allow these senators, don't allow this elite to decide who becomes the governor. Because when you allow them to decide, and how do they decide it? How do they do it? They come to meet you, they offer you money. They come to meet with your bishop. They come to meet with your, when you see your bishop with a strange jeep vehicle, is provided by government. And once you see your bishop, instead of talking right, is talking left, just take your own sense.
As compromised.
As compromised. So don't listen to that bishop. Don't listen to that apostle. Don't listen to that imam. Listen to your conscience. And your conscience should decide who you should vote for. And this is the issues we want to put on the table. Because the reason, obviously, is that your bishop, once he collects money, it's not about you. He doesn't pray for you. He prays for his children and his wife. And so we begin to raise awareness. Instead of the bishop praying for you and your family, he's praying for his wife and his children. And because he has collected something. And that's why we are saying that once the elite, they get organized, it is the poor. What separates the elite and the poor in Edo State today is poverty. The rural people, if you visit, just a few days ago we went to Ishan land in Uromi, and we visited, just going through those lanes, you see the pain and tears of going through those roads. You ask yourself, are these people part of government?
Yeah.
It pains you. Or you go to Igobazua. Igobazua is one of the oldest local government headquarters you can ever imagine in Edo State. But when you get there, you feel the pain of absence of government. And so when you have these kind of things going on across the state, I do not expect the people to go and vote because on the basis of sentiment. Don't allow anybody to deceive you. It is not your bishop to decide who you should vote for. It is not your apostle that will decide who you should vote for. You should vote for who you think your conscience tells you. And when the politician brings money, collect the money. It doesn't belong to them. Collect the money, but vote for whoever you want to vote for.
Okay,
because if we don't do that, and the quality of democracy we are going to be expecting will not be sincere.
All right, quickly share your thought with us on, I don't know if it's constitutional, I'm not sure it's constitutional, but it's a key component part of deepening democracy, because we see that even in civilized climes, the issue of debates by candidates, engagement with the people through interactions, through debates, just for the people to have the opportunity to make an assessment of the candidate. What's your take on that as far as the Edo State 20 is concerned?
Well, you know, that's also part of the whole conversations we are doing. And because if you recall, before Obaseki came in, we had our own civil society governorship debate. We invited Obaseki, we invited Pastor Ezeyamu, we invited all the governorship candidates to come and tell us what they were going to present. That presented an opportunity for us to hear and have an insight into what they think. And very clearly, and I remember very precisely that time. And that's nothing, and that's exactly what Obaseki have done. He's a private sector guy. He doesn't believe in any other approach. He believed that the private sector would deliver everything. But we have seen now that it is not the private sector. The private sector approach to solving every problem in the economy in Nigeria is not true. And that government role, the state, do have role to play in development. The kind of private sector we have in Nigeria is parasitic. So for the 8 years of Obaseki, we have seen that private sector cannot just be relied on to be the one to deliver goods. So the quality of governance need to be interrogated on the fact that the state need to be empowered to deliver. Take for instance, and the classical example is that the state has a Ministry of Works. And we have workers, we have engineers in Ministry of Works. Why do you think the government should not capacitate the Ministry of Works and to deliver on delivering roads?
Okay.
Just relying on private sector. And who are the owners of these private companies? They are the elite. And all over the world, America, where we copied all these things from, their state is delivering. And that's what Professor Mukhtar referred to, an entrepreneurial state, a state that can deliver. We need an innovative state. And I'm very happy and excited about the investment Obaseki have made in the civil service. But when you make such investment in civil service, and so what? You know, that question arises. I invested money.
What next?
What next?
Yeah.
They should be able to deliver. What are they delivering? You have invested billion. Like I've always said, I am not a civil servant. The money that goes to civil servants in Edo State is huge. The money that has come from Edo State that has gone to civil servants is huge. But civil servants are less than 5% of Edo State people. So if we were to go into election, why should I vote for a governor who wants to spend the entire resources of the state. Because, you know, the reason is obvious. The civil servants are very versatile. They are very organized. But 90% of the populations are not as organized.
They are not civil servants.
They are not civil servants. But in a decent society, how you allocate resources is very fundamental. So when you allocate resources to less than 10%, that is 10 times, 20 times higher than 90%, you can't get development.
Okay.
And that's where we are. And that's what we are seeing in Edo State. Today, when you look in Edo State to see how I said, and I repeat it again, that you can't trust the private sector in Nigeria. They are very parasitic. Okay. In Edo State today, we only have one crane as big as Edo State, and that's the government. That's the museum. Have you seen any private sector initiative in Edo State with crane?
So these are the issues.
That's the issues.
Okay.
The private sector can't deliver. They are parasitic. They are just out there for themselves. And who are actually the private sector in Nigeria?
The elites.
It's the elite, the politicians.
Right. Thank you very much. One key point you mentioned, if you've invested so much in strengthening the infrastructures and the capacities of the civil servants, they should also have the opportunity to put those knowledge, those skills to work in driving projects, in driving the economy, and driving development. Remember, many thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you here again some other time.
Yeah.